My name is Bill Helgeson, the Principal Domain Architect in the cloud space for Red Hat, along with my co-presenter, Lon. Chen, a Service Delivery Manager out of the North America Consulting Org. What we're going to talk about is migration as we start to stand up new infrastructures and some of the challenges on getting from point A to point B. Let's go ahead. So the challenge really is building a new platform. Most of the time we're talking to folks that are installing a new infrastructure, right? And the challenge comes in discovering really how are these new workloads going to run on the new platform. Once they've investigated that and the new platform, it's going to say, now that I have this new infrastructure, how am I going to manage it, right? And managing is key. Bringing some common layer, whether that's governance, security, provisioning, workload management, role-based access, all of those things come into something that's new. So what we want to do is we want to talk about a well-defined infrastructure needs to be well managed. That's actually the goal, right? And we want to bring speed and consistency to this. Enabling people and process really allows us to effectively manage this new infrastructure. Go ahead. So how complex can it actually be, right? So when we really start talking about it, we look at migration is saying, I have something that's already running and I want it to run somewhere else. We need to take a look at the applications, the work that are running on these workloads, and then determine, are they stateful, are they stateless, or can they be transitioned to a stateless type of structure? And if so, how am I going to move these workloads around in a large fashion? You may have 10, 15, 20,000 VMs that we need to move to this new infrastructure. That's a lot of work, right? You're not going to move all 10, 15,000 of those at once. So we need to find a way to bust down the group into some manageable migration windows and allow people to move these to this new infrastructure and meet all the new rules you may have put in place. Some of these rules may not exist in the old infrastructure. So you probably, hopefully, have put in some new structures around this new infrastructure, and you want the new workloads to come in a certain way. These migrated workloads, you want them to look the same so that we don't have this legacy versus new problem. It's more than moving VMs. Can you go to the next slide for me? Right? So what will end up happening is, what I mean by that is that there's a lot of things that need to be considered when we're going to do migrations, right? You have differing workloads, you have differing types of structures, you have different challenges for each one of these workloads that may move. Applications may need to change a little bit because they're running on a new platform from VMware, let's say, onto OpenStack, VMware onto Rev. They may behave a little bit differently, so we need to find out what that is and whether the structure is going to go. So really what we want to do is apply the portfolio to the challenge. Don't try to shoehorn something in. There are many management structures. In the infrastructure area, you have Red Hat virtualization, Red Hat OpenStack. You have insights, kind of say, hey, how am I doing? Where am I at any point in time? And the management portfolio, which is what we're going to use in order to migrate all of these workloads, you have CloudForms in its hybrid cloud management platform, the cloud management platform, as well as Ansible and Ansible Tower, right, for automation, very surgical type of abilities to be able to do some very surgical things within and outside of the workloads in case we have to do some changing. And of course, Red Hat Satellite to go ahead and keep things patched and keep things in a healthy area. So once we get managed, what we want to do is we want to say, what does that really mean, CloudForms and Ansible? I get asked this question all the time, right? And it is a very happy marriage. CloudForms allows you to take all of the different areas of concerns and give them to people that need to do it. Governance folks might want to look at reports. Security people might want to look at compliance, right? IT may be looking at provisioning and instantiation of resources as well as reclamation functions. How do I delete a VM? How do I reclaim IP? How do I clean up the infrastructure? What do I have to do in DHCP or DNS? Those types of things. So if you have a very extensive orchestrator, it can go across all the platforms you're going to use. CloudForms was designed to do that. So we're looking at whether you're in standard virtualization layers such as VMware Hyper-V and or Red Hat Virtualization or Rev, as well as the private cloud platform OpenStack and public. You literally can make these things look the same all the way around. And that's the intent, is to give a common interface, do the same thing, apply the same processes. And our automation platform underneath that with Ansible allows us to truly get inside the workload and make it different, depending on that platform. Leveraging CloudForms and state machines along with resolution allows it to transform the workload based on where it's going. Go ahead, next. The idea here is to give an interface where many different people can come in and look at things. A developer might have a totally different view. A developer may not even go into CloudForms. He may be using the RESTful API to publish and do things. You may have other tools, such as portals that are out, custom portals that you may use for users to come into and do things. I just worked on a very large project where they had 15,000 developers coming in through a custom portal, and that portal took all of its data live from CloudForms as the infrastructure was changing in 8 different data centers. So you can see this gives them a common place to go, a common view, makes things a little bit more controllable. We were able to apply this going across both the private virtualization infrastructure, whether that's classic virtualization, VMs, virtual machines, into the private cloud with OpenStack. And then you even could slice across both public and private with OpenShift. So we could actually get applications and workloads running irrespective of what the platform is, but the view that they're going to see inside of CloudForms and that management structure allows them a common structure to look at. So it will be the same every time, irrespective of where they're going. CloudForms allows you to bring a whole bunch of technologies together under one umbrella. Whether that's, its power is agentless. We're not going to pollute any workloads. We're not going to go into an application. We're not going to install an agent into a VM. It's 100% open source, right? So you can modify, change, do whatever you need to do. The open source project is ManageIQ, which was the original company name for CloudForms. And it is intended to be able to allow you to automate. If it's a well-formed interface, you can automate through CloudForms, right? Now with Ansible, you've got some real power going on, right? You can leverage a lot of the upstream modules to give yourself some true automation and then add orchestration in with CloudForms. Next. It's an example of the infrastructure that I was talking about a little bit ago. CloudForms is built to be federated. It's built to be zoned, so I can keep work near the workloads. I can keep management anywhere. I can keep them as abstracted as I want. In this case, each data center could go to their representative CloudForms that would be managing that data center. They could do work there, as well as corporate being able to go and see the entire virtual landscape, right? Whether that was container, virtual, public, or private. And you can mix these. A lot of these would be internal data centers, as well as one of the zones might be public cloud. Could be Amazon, could be Google, could be Azure. But if you looked at the structure, it would be very much the same all the way across. This allows for rapid deployment of the infrastructure. Service automation, policy compliance, and operational visibility seem to be core to just about everybody that we talk to, right? Now, the larger the project, the differing groups you're going to work in usually will fit into one of these three. Depending on where we're going to go, we'll say, listen, I want to have a common policy model. I want to have a common automation structure, irrespective of what I'm going to go to. I want CloudForms to do the right thing based on what he's working on. Don't make me have to say something. You could do automatic placement in CloudForms, so you could actually let the service dictate where it should be running, right? If this is a public website, something like that, it's okay to run in Amazon. However, if it's my data, it needs to run inside, right? That might run on Rev. If I have an app tier and the app tier has been made cloudy, stateless type of thing, I'm going to run that in an internal OpenStack. And you could run them together. They would look like one common service across that structure. Being able to go across all of the different clouds gives me some agility that you don't normally get. When I start bringing in consistency in both my automation, my policy, my reporting, my governance control, it's going to allow me to manage some pretty diverse workloads, because the workload can actually tell me who he is and what he is. So you literally could have, personas. Personas we think of as users. You literally could have an application that could have a persona as well. The other portion that's a very strong point inside of CloudForms is not a rip and replace type of technology. So if you have internal tools that have an interface, you most likely can reuse them through the CloudForms automation and orchestration structure. Ansible as well lends to that very well, is so you can kind of match these together between automation and orchestration. As you can see, agentless, web-based, so now we can get at it from anywhere at any time. It is role-based, so people are only going to see what you allow them to see and what they can see in their VMs, but not somebody else's. You can get pretty surgical in the model that you want to create. Due to the zonal construct, that the way you can build CloudForms, it's almost infinitely expandable. And that makes it very easy to scale up and scale down depending on activity. One data center may be busier than another. It may take more in one area and less in another. Very easy to do with the zone construct. As we said, the integration with Ansible, with CloudForms, is through Tower. We can heavily leverage this both at an API layer and as a provider in CloudForms, so you will natively see a lot of the playbooks and a lot of the templates that you've already written that you may be using, and those can be leveraged in any of the orchestration that's going on. So now we're managed, and we have an infrastructure, and I will tell you, it is much easier to migrate into a managed infrastructure than an unmanaged infrastructure. By it being managed, you can have some very distinct rules, and we can literally start matching workloads into the proper area where you want them when it's managed, because I have an infrastructure to talk to called CloudForms. The migration solution was actually built for a very, very large financial organization that was moving a tremendous amount of VMs. We're talking, I think their load's going to be between 40 and 50,000 VMs in the end from VMware into OpenStack. And that's where the design started. So the idea was, when we designed this, was to say we want to mitigate risk, right? We want to keep the risk down. So we want to give automatic failbacks. Let's say a migration, works well in dev and test, and in prod, you migrate this VM and it falls over. I need to get back very quickly. Get the service back up until we can go find out why this VM's having an issue. The idea was to reduce TCO, the cost of getting there. So since you have 10 to 50, in their case, 50 to 60,000 VMs, they're going to manage these in chunks. And those chunks allow them to scale very quickly. They had migration groups up of 200 VMs. The system ran, they clicked the button, it said go, and all they do is watch for the result. And that was the intent, to give a very easy interface. To get there, however, right, took a lot of discovery. So we would go through and we would meet with application owners and those types of things, which I'm going to get into in a bit. The discovery gave us our overview of what we're going to do and kind of what the challenge was. The workshop allows me to dig in, right? Now that we get an overview, we knew what type of people we need to talk to, which different groups, what are the different restrictions we had to live within. That's what the workshop allowed us to dig in with those individual groups to make sure that the model we're going to build is going to truly meet all the needs of the things that they need to do. We have an implementation process that we've actually used several times now that seems to be working out real well with most of the customers, and they were developed with customers and their infrastructure in mind. So the migration solution by Red Hat Consulting was developed with truly a full process, people, process, and technology. And when we say that, the people is to get collaboration all the way across the group, not just with IT, right? Get collaboration with security. Work with the application owners. Let's find out, right, what is the requirements of your app, so that when we go to change something or move something, we're going to meet those requirements. Work with the business owners. How long can they be down? When can the migration windows be done, right? And the more informed they are, and the more included they are, the number of tickets go down. They know what's happening, they know what to expect, and a lot of the things that you're going to address, you really want to address errors. We don't want to address the mundane ticket being opened or not. The process is to create something repeatable, right? If I have one group of 100, I should be able to do another group of 100. And if I have that group of 100, I should be able to do 50 the next time. And if I change it to 25, nothing else should change. And that was what we've tried to create in that process. And then continuously improve it. So you can iterate. You may be able to migrate one group while you're iterating the process for the next group, right? They may have a different set of requirements. You may have CMDB requirements. You may have different IP requirements. It could be from Windows to Linux, for example. You're doing the Linux group first. You could be working on the Windows folks next. Linux first, then Windows. You could be doing these in an agile manner is what I'm trying to say. And the technology, I already spoke. We're leveraging CloudForms, a lot of the open source tooling for imaging. They're different depending on whether I'm dealing with VMware or OpenStack, Rev, those types of things. So since the back end of CloudForms is pretty open, I can leverage just about any well-structured tool that I want to use. Go ahead. These are the type of groups as I'm talking about. The deeper the group, the better off this is going to go, right? You're going to be well informed. You're going to understand the requirements. You're not going to be changing things because you missed stuff. The deeper we go into the discovery with these folks here, the easier the process is going to be at the end. That's the idea. This is an example of the migration solution itself broken down into the swim lanes. So if we start to think about things as an organization, we can break these down into a pre-migration step, migration, and what's going to happen after I'm done, right? And a lot of these decisions, this flow could change. Everybody in this room that might want to do this, yours could be different than this. You may have different requirements. You may have little different icons you're going to stick. But believe it or not, the principles will almost stay the same every time we've seen so far. There is a pre-migration step. Depending on what you want to do in that pre-migration step, you could allow CloudForms to control it all. In the case of one customer we're working with right now, they use Ansible in the front end to do all the pre-migration step. We use CloudForms in the migration factory to do all the conversion and moving and decision making and that type of stuff. We use Ansible in the back end for the post processes. So you can literally stitch this together for your solution that's pretty solid. CloudForms, Ansible right now, we can support many different infrastructures. We're doing OSP 7, 8, and 9. Actually, now I can add 10, so we've actually had that up and going at the time. We have Rev 3X and 4X. We're going into Amazon, any region, any cloud. So if you have several regions, different regions in there, we're able to support that at a template level. Now, when we start talking public cloud, anyone that's interested in that and wants to get a little more detail, we can go into that after the session. So we configure a state machine. The state machine allows me to have very surgical steps with entry and exit points and error checking. You don't have to write any of it. A state machine in CloudForms already has those pre-configured for you. But you can determine what happens in those states, right? So we're not writing database code and we're not writing any of that. We're literally integrating in with scripts that do real work, things you're probably already trying to write today. The idea is a push-button interface. We could have several migration groups going on at the same time, by the way. And they don't have to be CloudForms or IT-specific folks. We want to give them an interface to say, here's your migration group. Do you want to migrate it, yes or no? They click submit, off they go. Now they're going to watch the migrations and see what's happening, and they react to what happens during those migrations. Monitoring of the process really is done live. We're going to show a little video demo of some simultaneous migrations. You're going to see that it gives them live feedback as things are happening, because migrating 100 VMs is kind of like watching paint dry. If you put 100 VMs and threw it in the mechanism and you didn't get any feedback, they're going to go, where am I? What's happening? You know, I can't tell my manager how far I am, what's going on. Those types. So we tried to address those types of concerns when we built it. Go ahead. Okay, so an example infrastructure. basically, this is a PO. When you see POA, we're talking point of arrival. When I hear POD and on a lot of the things, if you are working with some of the folks, the architects that might come out and work with you on this, that's the point of departure. Normally right now the point of departure has been VMware going into one of the other infrastructures that are targeted. But this kind of gives you an idea of an infrastructure that's been stood up. Some of this, all of these could be VMs. In the case of even the conversion machines over on the side, some customers put them on blades and they stand them up. It is running on RHEL 7.3 currently with the open source tooling to do the conversions. We can go to, the interesting part is, the only part that changes is what's happening down here, where it's going. If we flip to the next slide, we're going to see it on Rev. You notice this top half stays the same. So the idea is depending on how you're going to design your infrastructure, CloudForms and the migration solution can be molded to fit into that. Okay.
All right. Now that Bill has taken us through the business process and the inner workings of the migration engine, it's time to look at it in live action. So we're going to be migrating 3 VMs from VMware to Rev, OpenStack, and Amazon EC2 today. So the 3 VMs that we'll be migrating are the RHEL 65 Demo 1, Demo 2, and then the one for AWS. So in order to prep these VMs before the migration, we need to make sure a few things. Make sure the proper tags are in place. So if you notice, there's the point of arrival indicating this VM is going to the Rev environment. And then the second tag we have to put on there is the migration group. So you want to migrate these VMs in batches. So this is a way to group the VMs in the order that you want to migrate them in. So we'll mark this VM as group demo. If you notice on the bottom, this VM is now properly tagged with the migration group and point of arrival. All right, now let's look at RHEL 65 Demo 2 VM. So again, we'll be going to policies and modify the tags to make sure it's tagged correctly. So this one is going to OpenStack, so that's why you see point of arrival OpenStack. And it's already tagged with the migrate group demo. Right, if you notice right here, there's some OpenStack flavor and IPs indicating where this VM will be going to. And then lastly, we'll be looking at the third VM, which will be going to the AWS EC2 platform. So because EC2 has this concept of regions, so there's an extra tag actually on this VM. So as you can see, now there's 3 different tags. There's the point of arrival of Amazon, and then there's the region, which is pointing to US East 1. All right, now just to double check, these are the 3 VMs in demo group that we'll be migrating. And take a quick look at the platforms. Notice currently it's at 0 VMs. There's only 1 instance on OpenStack. And then on EC2, there should be no instances either. OK, now we're ready for the migration. So we have this catalog service item called batch migrate that's created. And you can use this to batch migrate the VMs in groups. So we'll go ahead and order that service. All right, so here you can choose which group you want to migrate. And for us today, we want to migrate the demo group. We'll go ahead and submit the request. And this is going to take you to the CloudForms request dashboard. So as you can see, it's queued on top here. So this is actually the parent request, and for every VM, it's going to spin off a separate request. So the column we'll be focusing on would be the last message column. So this is where you get the latest status on the progress and status of your VM migration. So as you can see, our original request was down here. It says kicked off migration group demo for 3 VMs. And there's 3 additional requests queued, 1 for each VM. Okay.
So one of the things that it actually does as well is it throttles itself, right? And that's why you're seeing this worker availability stuff on top. So sometimes you want to kind of tamper down a little bit CloudForms' ability to perform, because he could saturate the SAN, or he could, overwhelm the destination NAS or something like that, right? So he actually has a throttling capability. It's just a setting that says, I want this many migrations or this many conversions, and that's what you're seeing here.
Yeah. And we have this portion sped up quite a bit. We don't want you to sit through while the paint dries. So if you notice in the status, it goes through exporting OVA, converting the disk, creating network, just as Bill had mentioned earlier in this process. So if you notice, demo 2 has completed migration. So demo 2 was going to OpenStack. So let's check the OpenStack interface, and there you go. You see the new instance created, going to the right IP with the correct OpenStack size. All right, and now just going to the console to show you that the instance is up and running and you can actually log in.
So a lot of the times with the migration, folks need the entire personality to move. Name, IP, those type. They don't want to be changing all the ACLs and load balancers and all that kind of stuff. So if they match the networks and they bring over whatever, it's kind of a challenge to do. Anyone here with OpenStack, right? You need to interact with its ability to, DHCP and all those types of things. That's what we're trying to do here, is get those personalities to move over, so that you can. And the only one that doesn't qualify for that's Amazon, of course.
All right, now the ref VM is ready as well. And there it is, ref 61 demo 1 VM. All right, now we're just waiting for the last VM, which is going to EC2. So if you notice, it all says completed. And there's the instance, and going to the availability zone that we specified when we tagged it originally. And that concludes the demos.
Go back to the deck.
Going back to the deck.
So the idea here was personalities moved over. It's going to do some changing based on the point of arrival. So in the case of Amazon, for example, you don't get the same host name. You might have inside the VM, but you don't on the outside, right? You get a public and a private IP. CloudForms actually will scoop that up and then tell the user what their new IP was, right? It'll give them both the public and the private address in case you have some apps that are interacting inside of the platform, database to app type constructs inside of there, and then how do I get at it from the outside as a user, right? And those types of things. So it will pick that data up. Red Hat Consulting, we've actually done a lot of work where we've worked with a lot of customers now on doing these, and every customer has some unique challenges. The cool part about it is if you get one of the architects to come in, he brings all of those different ideas and different ways to go after the process, right? To give you different ways to actually counter the challenge, and it is challenging, right? You can't say it's easy. This makes it much easier, much more controllable, and it really does work. I mean, we've seen several thousand VMs being done with almost 100% efficiency, 99%. Usually, if you hit failures, by the way, what we're seeing is it was infrastructure driven. A network went down, sand filled up, that type of thing. But we've even countered that by being able to use CloudForms and Ansible to come in and say how much space is available before I even did the migration run. There's all kinds of ways that you can leverage those pieces depending on what you're going to, right? It is very much a discover, design, deploy, iterate process, right? So there's going to be lots of things you're going to want to do, whether that's, you know, every VM that gets migrated may need a CMDB change. It may need to update information in some of the reporting engines that are out there for each one of the different sections of the company that need to do it that are outside of IT, right? Could be a capacity utilization group. It could be all those types of folks can be accounted for in this process. Iterate is what you want to do. You want to continue to make it sharper, faster, more succinct as you start to go across these large numbers of workloads that you're going to migrate. This is kind of an example of an iteration on how we've implemented some of these, where we definitely did do the workshop, the discovery session. If you notice, it's in the first block of every one of my slides. Discovery and the workshop is incredibly important. The better your discovery and the better of that information, the easier this is to create. The more successful each one of the migrations will be, right? Then what we want to do is you want to get a test group. When you've developed this thing, get it in a lab, get some test VMs over. They're easy to copy. Bring real ones over and test them and say, did it really work? Is it performing the way I want it to perform? Is the VM moving in the amount of time I want it to move, right? Hey, Red Hat, this thing's moving it too slow. Okay, let's go look at why, right? Why is it slow? Is that SAN? Is that, is that network? It could be many different things, and we'll work with you to figure out what that is in your environment. Then you kind of do a pilot go live, right? Test it out, do a group, do a mini shot, get a friendly application group, right, to work with. Say, we're going to migrate your VMs first to their friendly group. Go see what's in and get all the bugs worked out of it, especially politically, right? Technically, we can do that all day long, right? Politically is the tough one. Is it going to be fast enough for them? Did it give them enough information on the screen? Are they able to see what's going on, right, along the process? But that's the way it is. And then, of course, future iterations might be, I want to move from data center 1 to data center 2. Is there something I have to do different, right? You can move the migration factory around. Any questions? I think we have one over here. You take.
What is the downtime during the transition? When you're doing the migration, what is will there be any downtime?
The migration window? Yeah. You're going to migrate, the VM shut down, right? That's part of discovery. You're going to work with the team. You'll get an idea of how fast you're going to be able to migrate the sheer size in your environment, right? And it's different in most environments. So I think we had it down to 17, 18 minutes at one location for a 250 gig VM, right? And they were running lots of them, right? Other places did a lot of pre and post work. They got the migration and that worked down. We slimmed it down quite a bit for them. And they added the pre and the post process. And I think they're averaging about 30 some minutes right now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Migration process. Thank you. If the migration process fails somewhere in the middle, you pick up at the beginning and start over, or can you?
The migration factory is meant to. We back up? Okay, there we go. The migration factory is meant to be restartable. So the idea is if you did hit one of these, network switch went out, right, while you're doing migration, something oddball, right? If it's done long running processes, he knows what point he is on that migration, right? He may fail the migration, but he's not going to roll it back unless you want him to. But he also knows if that process was successful. In the case of Amazon, we need an OVA. In the case of going to Rev or OpenStack, I'm going to use Limdom XML. And was the XML properly formatted? Did it go down right in the middle of that, right? It will reject it if it's not, and it'll start it back over.
So can you talk or show a little bit more about how you do the personalities within CloudForms as far as what that looks like? Is it just done via tagging? Is there more to it?
Okay, so one of the things about the tagging part, Lon did it manually for you, right? But some of the things that we've created was to say, users don't understand CloudForms. They don't need to go in and click things. They don't need, because they wouldn't know what to do, right? So we're going to work with application owners. Actually, you literally could give them an Excel spreadsheet, something they're used to, with a set of columns, and they just put in data. You hand that spreadsheet to the IT guy. He says, I want it on this network. I want it to go over here maybe. Something like that. Storage. He can do whatever he wants in that area. That is importable directly into CloudForms, and it will auto-tag the proper resources in the VMware environment as you're going to move it. Okay? Personalities would be your migration group A, your migration group B. The tag in the group goes to the role-based access. So when you log on, if you are a member of migration group A, that's what you're going to see. If he logs on his migration group B, that's what he's going to see. That's built into the cloud management platform. We're just leveraging it. You could, in the case of the financial we used, we tied it into Active Directory. So they had Active Directory migration group owners, right? And anybody that was a member of that group could come in on the migration team, but they would only see their stuff. So CloudForms allows you to filter that automatically. You get it for free. It's there, right? I could talk to you more about that if you want. Yes, pretty much. Well, tags in your direct, if you're using a directory or what, if you don't have a directory, you could use internal group membership. You could, but the VM side is all tags. Tags and custom attributes, I'm sorry.
So at the beginning you mentioned it, that you were incorporating this with Ansible. How do you tie Ansible into CloudForms?
Good question. So if you remember, everything starts with a migration state machine. That state machine has states in it, right? So each state is a step, and I make these things very, very surgical. CloudForms has an Ansible Tower provider. That provider connects into, just like it would to VMware or OpenStack, or what's a manager of managers, and it actually retrieves back the inventory of available templates and playbooks. I actually will leverage that provider to call the proper playbooks and templates inside of Tower when I want to call them with the proper variables. That answer it? Right? And by the way, those variables could be dynamic all the way around. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I think we're going to have a raffle. Oh, thank you. We're going to have a raffle, and there's a sign-up sheet. If anybody would like to have a one-on-one session or something, we'd be happy to work with you over on the side. Aha. She can pick it. She's the real boss. Let her pick it.
Okay, sure. All right, it's 489-8594. 8594 is the last 4 digits.
8594.
No?
All right. Maybe another one?
Not.
Okay. All right. 8573.
Hey, there you go.
All right, congrats.
All right. And then Malcolm's going to make a quick announcement.
Okay. Malcolm? Yep.
Just
Testing.
Hi, just quickly, if anybody wants to do a quick assessment, we're doing some work, something called Ready to Innovate. It'll give you, it's a quick survey and talk about the likely challenges your organization might face with open or passage option. So we're just sitting over there in the corner if anybody was going to have a chat. So if anybody's interested, we'll do a quick survey for you and some evaluations. Thanks very much.